I didn't plan to make another video on this topic, as I've been spending a great deal of my time researching and writing the script for my lengthy video on Blizzard, but in the last few days I found some new information about Call of Duty Modern Warfare's campaign that I was not aware of. As a person, and as a content creator, I believe it's incredibly important to stay logically consistent. When new information arises, it is necessary to reevaluate your views and proceed with that new information in mind. About a week ago, I released a video titled Call of Duty Modern Warfare Journalist PTSD Simulator, where I touched on games journalists being offended by the content of Modern Warfare's campaign. I want to start by making this very clear that I still believe that the content of Modern Warfare's campaign is refreshing to see in a modern AAA title. Journalists were quick to be triggered, and they were outraged that they had to see things that made them feel uncomfortable. I mean, God forbid that we have to feel negative about something that we're seeing. All of our media needs to be super positive and happy all of the time. Because of course, that's what war is. I stand by my statements that I made in my previous video. However, due to my lack of knowledge on the real-world subject matter, my position on the portrayal of some of the events in the game have shifted. I will not use my lack of knowledge on the subject as a way to vindicate myself in my last video. Instead, I will use this as a learning experience for my future videos in order to not only educate myself, but also deliver higher quality and more accurate content to those of you who watch my videos. With all of that being said in this lengthy introduction, let's get into the meat of the video. I have been, and I am still, incredibly critical of DICE and EA's handling of history in Battlefield 5. DICE has been on record stating that they wanted to bring attention to lesser-known events of World War II and tell the untold stories. Unfortunately, while doing this, they have made adjustments to those stories outside of what even revisionist apologists could deem appropriate. I'm specifically referring to the mission in which you play as a young woman who single-handedly destroys a German heavy water facility, when in reality, this mission was carried out by a team of incredibly brave Norwegian nationalists working with the British Special Operations Executive. DICE used this event to further push their feminist agenda that is clearly displayed throughout their game and in its marketing. DICE and EA also infamously took this so far as to call fans of the game ignorant if they felt that this was not plausible in a real-world situation. Well, hate to break it to you, that's not actually what happened. For DICE to ignore actual history, while at the same time maintaining that it is the most accurate Battlefield to date, was, and still is, absurd and insulting. With that being said, I must use the same lens of historical accuracy to examine Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Upper Echelon Gaming recently produced a video where he called Modern Warfare blatant propaganda, and I was frankly surprised at what I learned in that video. For those of you who may not know, one of the main antagonists in the game is the Russians. The Russians are often portrayed as heartless murderers and torturers of civilians. And this is nothing new for Russia, as they've been used as the villains in countless films and video games in the past. This does not excuse rewriting historical events and framing another nation in a negative light for atrocities that they did not commit. There are two examples in Call of Duty Modern Warfare's campaign that I'm going to be referencing, and the first of those is the Highway of Death. The Highway of Death is a stretch of highway in the game that the Russians had bombed. The Russians would kill anything that dare attempt to use the highway to leave the country. Unbeknownst to me, this was an actual event that took place in our real world. This is where the dishonesty and blatant rewriting of history comes into play. In real life, it was in fact the Americans who had bombed a highway in an attempt to destroy military targets. Unfortunately, there were a great deal of civilian casualties during the strike. The second example is the Haditha Massacre, which is an event I referenced in my previous video where you play as a young girl during a chemical strike on civilians at the hands of the Russians. In real life, this was a slaughtering of just above 20 civilians in Iraq at the hands of US Marines. These killings were to have been due to an attack on a Marine convoy using an IED that led to a Marine losing his life. While I don't feel that Modern Warfare is the end-all be-all of gaming narratives showing the horrors of war, I do feel that it's still important to storytelling in games, particularly in the AAA gaming space. As I said in my previous video, it is not a flawless story by any means. However, it is still refreshing to see such heavy topics being addressed by a AAA gaming company. Stories that make us uncomfortable by placing its audiences in difficult situations are important to our society, whether we're talking about video games, film, or literature. Without these stories that force us as audiences to think, we will stagnate and we will cease to learn and grow as human beings. With this being said, however, it cannot come at the expense of historical accuracy, especially when the events that are being portrayed happened in real life, as it's insulting to those who suffered or know people who suffered during those real-life events. If you're going to use real-life events in a story, it is the responsibility of those telling that story to understand what happened during these events and portray them with the respect that they deserve, as human suffering is not something to be taken lightly. This is a bit of a shorter video, as I wanted to mainly address my previous video and clarify my stance. As I stated in the introduction, I believe that it's very important to stay logically consistent, and I will continue to do my best to do so in the future. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to hear if this information has changed your opinion on Modern Warfare's campaign. Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.